Hello, my name is Paige Propper, and I am a child life specialist with a master's in both child psychology and child development. I've worked at both Brigham and Women's Hospital, Lucille Packard Children's Hospital, and had my own private practice as well. The advances in research and technology have resulted in an increased survival rate for children with many chronic illnesses and diseases that used to be considered terminal. Unfortunately, the long-term and frequent inpatient stays associated with these types of illnesses are still part of the prescriptive language. I am here today to talk to you about the impact that these illnesses have on the students' social and academic development, and how the adaptation of new educational technologies can minimize the dramatic effects that these life-changing events have on a child and his or her family. I've worked as a child life specialist in hospitals and the Ronald McDonald House. I have my own private practice and have worked in school systems. I have seen firsthand the impact that the chronic or terminal illnesses can have on a child and their education. Research shows that 40% of students with a chronic illness have school-related problems. For a family with a child who is hospitalized or diagnosed with a chronic illness, life is altered immediately. I love this quote from a parent, one who will remain anonymous, but I find it very insightful. Having a child with a chronic illness made us feel as if we lived in a box. When our child was sick, was not sick, the lid was open, and we could go in and out freely. When my child was sick, the lid slammed shut. We were isolated in the dark, had limited private space, and were stuck within 4 defined walls. The family unit feels exceptional pressures when one or more of the child is sick. There is the obvious tension that comes with the unknown, the sadness that your child may die or that they may not be able to live a normal life, and the guilt that you have as a parent, that you want to fix this thing that is unfixable. Parents find themselves as caregivers, as peers, and as educators to the child, and that only exacerbates the issues. Oftentimes, the family unit is split up. Siblings have to go to school, one parent may have to work, or the other one has to remain with the child or with the sick child in the hospital. Routines are changed, while the sick child requires care from one or travel to and from the hospital or from the clinics. One thing I saw a lot of, working with these children at the Ronald McDonald House, was the impact that a child's illness has on the siblings. The siblings are still in school oftentimes. They're in the school without a parent, maybe living with a grandparent, living with a friend. They're no longer able to continue with their everyday activities, their sports, music lessons, those kind of things. And they often would like to be with their sibling, where their sibling is, making sure that their sibling's okay. And their education may also falter. They may be distracted in school. They may develop emotional and social issues. It's not just the sick child that is affected. But again, the sick child, the life is even more different than that, which can make their school participation as critical for emotional and social survival as the medical treatment is for their physical survival. While a child is absent from school, their school life goes on. Their friends continue, their relationships with their teachers continue, and they don't. It makes their re-entry back into their lives, into their former lives, once they finish with their treatments, extremely difficult, and they become very fearful. Children can become depressed as their peer relationships change, and they change around them. They often feel isolated and alone, and feel like they no longer fit into school. Children may develop a poor self-esteem because of physical changes that may have happened, or simply because of emotional and behavioral issues that have come up that no longer help them to feel confident in themselves. Fellow students can often avoid them for fear of catching something if they don't know about it, or just not knowing what to say. Lengthy hospital stays or complications to illnesses may require a child to be isolated for extremely long periods of time from anyone. They may be so sick that have an immune disorder that may make them have to be in a clean room and not have access to any interpersonal relationships. Lots of times these children act a lot like mini adults because they are with so many adults throughout the day, and they lose their ability to discuss and talk in a normal way that children would talk to each other. So we ask, why do these children fall so behind academically? When we know that there are social issues, but why do they fall so behind academically? And obviously a student who misses school frequently, they miss that interaction between the teacher, the ability to ask questions, the ability to both hear and write what they're seeing and hearing. That obviously affects a child. They also have different common experiences from their peers. And a common experience may be they've never played on a team sport, or they've never played a sport. They've never been to a party or to a dance. So their common experiences, even when they come into play with what we're asking of them academically, things may seem foreign to them. Child may become fatigued or distracted very easily, and not enable them to be able to learn at the same level that other children may. They develop learning disabilities that sometimes are permanent cognitive changes, or they could be temporary due to medications and the treatments that they go through. Children may not be able to follow the educational plan that was originally set for them. Lots of times their educational plans change, and we need to be able to be in touch with the school and connect with them in such a way that we can keep up with what their cognitive changes may be and how that may affect their educational plans. They also develop, lots of times, physical impairments. They may lose vision or lose some of their hearing, speech impediments, even seizure disorders and mini seizures where they seem like they're spacing out. All of these can really affect their education and how they are seen by their teachers as well. And if we're not on top of that, that can be a problem. Children become withdrawn due to a decreased level of motivation, self-concept, other social and emotional factors. They lack socialization with their peers. And students are also isolated from their peers, and that exasperates that re-entry and makes it their nerves go crazy, and they really have issues with getting back into school, and they don't want to often, and it's just too much pressure. Research does show, though, that friendships and support are critical for battling chronic and terminal illnesses. It is really a critical part of being able to retain your life as a child. When parents of typical children are asked what they want out of life for their child, they typically say, we want health, happiness, independence, education, love, social abilities. And it's the same for a child with a medical illness. Parents still want those same things, and we have to be able to make sure we can give those to them. On the legal side, federal legislation mandates that a free and appropriate public education be available to all children under the age of 18. To a school, students with a chronic illness pose very unique situations, but they're still an integral part of the school. They have the same needs and the same for access to their education outcomes, both academically and socially, as their healthy peers do. There are two laws that govern the rights of these children. The Individual with Disabilities Education Improvement Act of 2004, which states that all children with disabilities have available to them free and appropriate education. Children with chronic and terminal illnesses are entitled to education through what's called the OHI category, other health impairment category. And then there's also the Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. And that requires a school district to provide the free and appropriate education to a student with a disability within their jurisdiction, regardless of the nature and the severity of their illness. With these laws in place, many hospitals have set up wonderful programs, wonderful tutoring programs. They coordinate tutoring services with the schools. They provide both inpatient and outpatient services for these children at very little to no cost for the child. But unfortunately, there are limitations, many limitations that can cause problems. I've watched many a tutor roam the hallway of a hospital, burdened with books, faxes, running back and forth, making phone calls, trying to reach teachers, trying to get what they need to be able to teach a child what they've been told by their child's home teacher is important to teach them. But the resources may not be there for them to do that, so they are frantic running around. Tutoring is very, very important. but it is a scheduled activity, and there are many times when the child may be too tired, and they are not feeling well enough to even participate at the time the tutor is scheduled to come. A child may be taken from the hospital at any point from their room for a test or treatment, and may not be there at the time that the tutor is scheduled. The schoolwork that is required is often difficult for a teacher to teach. Imagine trying to do a science lab with a child in a hospital, and that's not necessarily something that's easy to do or to show hands-on. Educators and medical staff also don't always have access to the materials that they need to share the health condition of the child at that time with each other. The student's condition can change at any time. The medication they may be on, or the medication that they even are temporarily on, a pain medication, for example, can alter what they're thinking and how they view a singular lesson plan, and that can have a real detrimental effect on the child's cognitive abilities, and also on their social self-concept when they are losing something and not having the ability to learn it. In addition, I've also experienced that many times the funding for tutors is very difficult to get. You can have a patient who's being treated in one city, but they actually live in another state completely. And what happens is you end up having to fight to get that education for that child, to get funding to do so. A child may the child may be eligible for tutoring costs, but because the child is now living for, say, a month, 2 months in another state, they have to fight for that. They have to fight to get that state to pay for them, and that's a really hard situation. You can have children go months without having any education at all. And then there are also times when the student may not be in a hospital at all. They may be in a Ronald McDonald House. They may be coming to and from the hospital, but they live too far away, so they rent an apartment or they stay somewhere else, and they don't have access to even the tutors that are within the hospital walls. How do they continue to be educated there? It is the communication and the collaboration between families and the medical staff and the homeschool staff and their teachers at their home states that is really imperative to help these children get through this and be able to re-enter school at a level that they're comfortable being. This is where online education programs like Learn360 can make a real enormous difference. Teachers can upload assignments, they can upload tests and quizzes. We bring the class to the student. Learn360 Health is the fastest growing web-based interactive educational platform and media on-demand service for K-12 students as right now. Learn360 Health was recently developed. We have access for students and teachers 24/7 via the internet. We enable bedside, family, media rooms, tablets. Over 60,000 multi-resources all collaborate to state, national, Common Core standards, are all available on Learn360. They have producers such as PBS, National Geographic, A&E, Sunburst Media. It's all private and customizable. A teacher can download a video from the class and upload it. They can download their playlist. They can download all their student education pieces. And they test quizzes, make all that kind of stuff, and they can download them to the teachers or to the tutors, to the parent, and to the child individually, all being able to help them to access their education while they're not in the school.